Funding for this edition of Remember Them with Steve Adubato and Jacqui Tricarico has been provided by PSEG Foundation, Hackensack Meridian Health, Keep Getting Better, Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, working to create a future where health is no longer a privilege but a right, the Northward Center, the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, the Turrell Fund, a foundation serving children, New Jersey Board of Public Utilities, providing New Jersey residents tools to save money on energy costs. That's what NJBPU does. New Jersey Institute of Technology, NJIT, makes industry-ready professionals in all STEM fields. And by Johnson & Johnson. Promotional support provided by NJBIA. We put business at the center. And by bestofnj.com, all New Jersey in one place.
Hi, everyone. Steve Adubato, Jacqui Tricarico. We are co-anchors of a great series called Remember Them, seen on one-on-one. I can get it out. I'm close to great anchor, Jacqui. I can't even get one-on-one out. Hey, Jacqui, Diane Hawkins, who is the niece of Sergeant John Basilone. She's the head of the John Basilone Foundation. Tell folks why we remember John Basilone.
He was known as Raritan's hometown hero, and he really became the poster boy for World War II efforts during that entire time. And he was here from New Jersey. He was passionate about serving in our United States military and going to war and fighting for what he and so many believed in during that time period. And he lost his life way too young, going back to fight. And we lost him in battle. But there's so much here in New Jersey and across the country that remember him specifically for his efforts.
That's right.
And for his bravery. And it was just so nice to have Diane come on and talk about her uncle. She's dedicated her life and mission to making sure his memory and his legacy stay alive.
I want to shout out to our friends at the New Jersey Hall of Fame. John Basilone was inducted in 2011. Basilone serves in the Army, enlists at 17, comes back home after several years, I think 3 years, and then he joins the Marines. And he loses his life in a battle as a Marine. Courageous, patriotic, significant in so many ways, and represented so many others who lost their lives so that we can do this, so we can live our lives free and not under the reign of some leader somewhere else. John Basilone, an extraordinary person from New Jersey who we need to honor and recognize. And we talked to Diane Hawkins, who's his niece and also the president of the foundation in his name. For Jacqui and myself, let's check out that conversation.
There's a mighty New Jersey turnout to honor a Marine who has been awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor for heroism on Guadalcanal. Sergeant John Basilone of Raritan, New Jersey.
As long as I can remember, I've heard about my famous Uncle John. That's my grandmother and grandfather with him after he came home in 1943. And Raritan, where I grew up, has never forgotten its hometown hero. There is a parade in his name every year, and just being related makes you kind of a celebrity.
The Basilone family!
We were just looking at a section of a documentary, a piece of a documentary that was put together by Diane Hawkins. She's the niece of Sergeant John Basilone, actress, filmmaker, and president of the Sergeant John Basilone Foundation. Diane, it's an honor to have you with us. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here. I appreciate you asking me.
I was just telling you before we get on the air that growing up in Newark, New Jersey, Branch Brook Park is an iconic and important park in the neighborhood I grew up in. And there's a plaque there commemorating John Basilone. And I imagine most people don't know who John Basilone was. He enlisted in the military before his 18th birthday. He grew up in Raritan. Why does he matter so much, and why do we need to remember him, Diane, please?
Well, the reason why matters so much is that, when I think about him, his selflessness and his honor, duty to be helping our country. He, like you said, he enlisted in the Army when he was 17. He actually had to have my grandmother sign papers. He was a restless soul. He actually caddied for the Japanese when he was younger. And he used to like to caddy for them because he said they were nice people and good tippers. But he never realized the impact that they would have on his life later on. It is amazing. I mean, for a man who died when he was 28, there has been so many places that have been in his memory. I mean, of course, the parade we have every year in Raritan. There's in Camp Pendleton, there's a John Basilone Road. He just got into a memorial in La Jolla. I went out there for the unveiling of his plaque, being there at the memorial of all other soldiers, both men and women. He just had a ship named after him, the DGE 122, which I had the honor of speaking at the keel laying, the christening, and the commissioning. Our Uncle Donald, the last surviving sibling, was asked to speak that day, and he just was so weak that I stood alongside him and spoke his words. But it was really great that he was there because he was the only surviving one for the past many years, and he had the opportunity to be there.
Diane, let me give a little more detail. He served in the Army. He had a 3-year tour of duty in the Army. Enlisted in 1934, as Diane said, 17 years of age, right? Think about the period of time in our country. And John Basilone, from Raritan, drops out of high school, goes into the military, serves his tour of duty. He was a champion boxer, by the way, right?
Yes.
When in the military.
Yes.
But then after leaving the Army in 1937, John Basilone returns home. Eventually, he enlists in the Marine Corps in 1940. Why did he go from the Army to the Marine Corps after he had already served, Diane?
Well, he said he went home, and as I mentioned before, he was a restless soul. He always, they used to say that when he was in school, he'd be tapping his feet and looking at the clock, wanting to get out. He had a mission. He really felt like he had to do something, and he couldn't find a job that suited him. So his older sister, Phyllis, invited him to Baltimore, and her husband was in a plant where his skills of, from the Army, because he used to mantle machine guns, worked out in this factory. But he was miserable. He wasn't happy. He walked out of work one day, and there was a Marine recruiting office, and he signed up. He said he felt that the Marines were tougher, and he wanted that toughness, and he wanted to, have more experiences. He always had this sense. My 2 aunts said they always had a premonition that he was supposed to do something, that he had a duty in his life, and so joining the Marine Corps was one way. And he
Diane, sorry to interrupt. Did he have no fear?
Oh, he was fearless. He was fearless. He was I interviewed so many of the men who knew him. Clinton Waters, for one example, his best man at his wedding, he said that he was a gentle soul. He always had a smile on his face. He also loved to sing opera. He would sing arias. He used to sing to his mother while she was cooking. And then when they were out on the battlefield, they said he would break out into singing opera. There's a sense of Fear, yes, but I think he fought through that fear. I mean, the fact that even though he could have had a cushy job after he received the Medal of Honor at Guadalcanal, and
That's
then
right.
voluntold to go around selling war bonds, he wanted to be back with his boys, he'd say. But his line selling the war bonds was, all my buddies back on the front lines are very happy that you are backing the attack and buying these war bonds. You know, they told him, even though he didn't want to come back to the States, they told him he was worth more in the States selling war bonds than he was back on the front lines with him.
But this is important. On October 24th, 1942, his unit was attacked by a larger Japanese force in the battle for Henderson Field, commanding 2 machine gun sections. John Basilone fought for 2 days until only he and 2 other Marines remained, broke through enemy lines to resupply ammunition, and continued to fight with reinforcements. That's how he won the Medal of Honor.
Sergeant John Basilone, I'm very happy to welcome you, the first enlisted Marine to receive the Congressional Medal of Honor, and we're very proud to have you in New York City. Can you tell us something about how you happened to get this medal? You must have mowed them down.
Yes, sir. I was in a good outfit with good men. I just happened to be there, and any man would have done the same in my place.
Spoken just like a Marine.
But his life ended February 19th, 1945. Do you think he knew that, given how incredibly dangerous his work in the military was, particularly as a Marine, that there was a good chance that he would be killed in service?
I don't think he thought about it. I think he was just so headstrong with moving forward. I've talked to so many veterans. I've gone across country. I went to Iwo Jima twice. I was in Guadalcanal. I was told by the Lieutenant Colonel Murphy that if I wanted to find out about my uncle, follow his footsteps. So I learned from these men that I think once they're in, there's such a band of brothers. I mean, the TV series, the one before the Pacific, was called Band of Brothers. And I don't think any of them, and I think today, even the men who come back and the women who come back today, they cannot, they're so used to having somebody, you know, taking care of somebody, looking out for somebody looking out for them, that they forget about the fear. They just think of a job. He always felt like this was a job. He had a job, and this is what he was doing. And I think that overrode any fear. From what I learned from the other men who knew him, I just think he just moved, you know, one foot in front of the other, and just didn't think about, well, this is going to be the end. I mean,
let me just remind folks of this. 2011, Sergeant John Basilone was in fact inducted into the New Jersey Hall of Fame. He's laid to rest in Arlington National Cemetery. It's important that we remember Sergeant John Basilone for his heroism, for his commitment to our country, particularly during an incredibly difficult, conflict-ridden time in our lives. And to Diane Hawkins, who's an actress, filmmaker, and the niece of Sergeant Basilone, president of the Sergeant Basilone Foundation, we thank you so much for helping us remember John Basilone. Thank you so much, Diane.
okay, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You got it. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
To watch more Remember Them with Steve Adubato and Jacqui Tricarico, find us online and follow us on social media.
You are your child's best advocate. No one cares more about your child's health, safety, development, and well-being more than you. Empower yourself with the vaccination information you need to make the best decisions for your child. Hackensack Meridian Health can help. Learn more about fact-based information at hackensackmeridianhealth.org/vaccine-facts, and always talk to your child's pediatrician.
For New Jersey kids, for New Jersey seniors, for New Jersey families, unite to end hunger. For the Community Food Bank of New Jersey, the state's largest anti-hunger, anti-poverty organization that gives hundreds of food pantries, soup kitchens, and nutrition programs across the state the food and resources they need. Unite to end hunger.
We shift gears. We talk about Major General George Washington Goethals. Now, I call it Goethals. You called it Goethals, and it's the Goethals Bridge.
Right.
Jacqui, what's the guy's name?
You know, we're still not too sure. And up next, when you even ask that question to Colonel McGovern, who joins us up next to...
You sure that's his name?
Yes, to learn.
You sure it's not McGovern?
No,
it's
I'm
McGovern.
pretty sure. Yeah,
now, why did we talk to McGovern? You found McGovern. How'd you find McGovern?
Yeah, he is a history professor. He's over at the United States Military Academy. He lives and breathes this stuff, Steve. He knows anything and everything there is to know about Goethals and gives us an inside look about why he was such an important engineer and what he did with the Panama Canal to make it what it is today.
He led the effort to build the Panama Canal.
Exactly, yes. And it was many, many years spent there, and the work that he did to make sure that the thousands of workers that worked on the Panama Canal were heard and taken care of as best as they could, even through disease and death and all types of things. But making sure that project ended and created the way it was set out to was one of his most important roles and important successes during his military career. So up next, you'll hear more about Goethals.
But Jacqui, hold on one second. Before we do that, didn't he come back after all that and serve as a consulting engineer at the Port Authority for the George Washington Bridge, the Hudson, the Lincoln tunnels? Didn't he do that as well? And also was an engineer, a state engineer in New Jersey? Yeah,
and he really helped the design of those really important structures. And that's why he was named after he was passed away just a few months, I believe, before the Goethals Bridge was completed and was named after him.
Which he had a hand in that as well. This is Colonel McGovern talking about Major General George Washington Goethals. Check it out. We are honored to be joined by Lieutenant Colonel Rory McGovern, Associate Professor in the Department of History and War Studies at the United States Military Academy. It's great to have you with us. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So we're trying to make sense of who Major General George Washington Goethals was and why he matters so much. First, why are we calling it the Goethals Bridge when his name is Goethals?
George Goethals, I think, struggled with people getting his name wrong throughout most of his life. In fact, he was christened George William Goethals, and it was a registrar's error at City College in New York that he didn't catch. And by the time that he matriculated at West Point, Army records listed him as George Washington Goethals from that initial error, and he thought it was just too much red tape to ever fix it. So I think this is something he's struggled with for his whole life and even still.
But it's so interesting to me. Connect Goethals to the building of the Panama Canal, please.
Sure. So Goethals, of course, one of his greatest achievements as an engineer was the Panama Canal. And his path to that, it was long and complicated, and it came through the Army. In his childhood, he didn't really have ambitions to be an engineer. He went to City College, had ambitions to go into business. But then he secured an appointment to West Point, which was its curriculum at the time in the late 19th century was very heavy on science and engineering and math. And engineering really caught his passion. And he performed very well at West Point. He graduated within the top 2 of his class, which secured him the ability to commission as an Army engineer inside the United States Army Corps of Engineers. And he followed what was then a typical career pattern for Army engineers. That included some survey work, some frontier work, and river and canal work on the Ohio and Tennessee rivers. And that's where he really learned canal engineering.
You know, it's so fascinating to me. It took 10 years to build the Panama Canal. He oversaw 40,000 employees. The United States government documented 5,855 canal workers' deaths. How did that impact Goethals?
It was something that he struggled with, and he struggled with it because, as Goethals saw it, the problems in the Panama Canal zone, they were technical engineering problems, but they weren't unique. They were just problems of scale. The biggest problem that he saw was that to complete the Panama Canal, it was a matter of organization, and it was a matter of administering the canal zone so that the workers did not face, so that there were reductions in workers' deaths, so that the workers did not face such a hostile disease environment dominated by malaria and yellow fever, so that the sub-organization of the canal could move more efficiently, so they could move all the dirt out of there as they were digging it in ways that, hopefully in ways that he strove to avoid landslides. I mean, imagine digging through a continental divide in a tropical environment. It's a massive problem.
And by the way, as I'm realizing that I'm pronouncing his name differently than you are. I mean, I'm saying Goethals and you're saying Goethals, and I'm thinking, and the bridge is called the Goethals. We'll leave that alone. But I'm curious about this. Explain to folks why the Panama Canal is such, and we're going to do some more work on the Panama Canal, talk about why it's so important. Do you think Goethals understood the significance and the importance of the Panama Canal while he was leading that effort?
I think he did. I think he was very aware of it. There has long been an effort to dig a canal through the isthmus, even as far back as the days
of the isthmus. Explain
the Isthmus of Panama. It's the narrowest width of land separating the Caribbean Sea from the Pacific Ocean in Panama, about where Central America connects to South America.
So hold on, the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, right? It's the connection, and it shortens the voyage by over 8,000 miles, correct?
Absolutely. And because of that, it has there have been attempts at digging a canal going all the way back to the 1500s. Of course, they failed. Most recently, to Goethals' time, there was a French attempt in the late 19th century that failed. Goethals, in his own time, especially as a military officer, was very aware of the strategic value of the Panama Canal, because during the Spanish-American War, it took uncomfortably long time to move naval assets from San Francisco around to operate in the Caribbean Sea and near Cuba. An uncomfortably long time. Goethals was very aware of the risk posed by that, and also with an engineer's mind and connections to businessmen, also very aware of the potential implications for global trade if there were a canal in Panama.
So let's bring it back to New Jersey. We're a New Jersey-based media operation. After World War, Goethals serves as state engineer of New Jersey, and then later is an advisor and chief consulting engineer to the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, based on the 1921 compact between the two states, New York and New Jersey. And the Goethals Bridge was built in 1928 in his honor. He was a state engineer in New Jersey, Lieutenant Colonel?
He was. It was a very brief appointment. He was appointed in 1917 after he had completed the Panama Canal and opened the canal successfully in 1914. He served as the first governor of the Panama Canal Zone from the point that the canal opened until his retirement in 1916. And in retirement, he accepted an appointment as the state engineer for New Jersey. The appointment only lasted for a couple months, because when the United States entered World War I, he resigned in order to lend his military services to the war effort. He ended up running the U.S. Army's entire logistics enterprise supporting the war. Now, once the war ended in 1918, he opened his own engineering firm and eventually became a consulting engineer. And that's why from 1923 until his death, he was a consulting engineer for the Port Authority, and he consulted on such projects as what became the Goethals Bridge, what became the Holland Tunnel, what became the George Washington Bridge.
He consulted on those?
He did, yes.
Why are you so fascinated by the Goethals?
I'm fascinated for a couple reasons. Number one, I'm a career military officer. I've been in for nearly 21 years now, and I'm interested in other military officers. But number two, I'm also a historian. My job at the United States Military Academy is to educate and inspire cadets, future officers in the Army. And one of the most effective ways to do that is to find people in the past who were just like them, who accomplished these amazing things. And when you look at Goethals, you see a person who has sheer determination, organizational capabilities, and a lot of the skills that we want these young officers to have today.
He was an extraordinary leader and manager.
Yes, that is correct.
You know, I got a minute left. I'm curious about this. As a student of leadership, I'm fascinated by different styles and approaches to leadership. He was a taskmaster with a great sense of empathy and compassion for the men, and they were men, who worked on his team. Is that a fair assessment?
That's a fair assessment. He made a practice while he was leading the canal effort of holding what he called Sunday court, which was a fixed period of time on Sunday mornings where anybody who worked on the canal zone, no matter who they were, whether it was one of his chief subordinate engineers or whether it was one of the laundresses who had come over from Jamaica, and anybody in between could come. If they had a concern, they could take some of his time, air their concern. If he believed the concern was legitimate, he employed on his staff investigators who would look into it, and he would solve the problem.
A fascinating leader, fascinating engineer, someone we remember, Major General George Washington Goethals. And we are honored to be joined and have him share his perspectives on Goethals. Lieutenant Colonel Rory McGovern, Associate Professor in the Department of History and War Studies at the United States Military Academy. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you. It was great to be here, Steve.
On behalf of the entire team at Remember Them and our leader, Jacqui Tricarico, I'm Steve Adubato. We'll see you next time.
Remember Them with Steve Adubato and Jacqui Tricarico is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by PSEG Foundation, Hackensack Meridian Health, Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, the Northward Center, the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, the Turrell Fund, a foundation serving children, New Jersey Board of Public Utilities, New Jersey Institute of Technology, and by Johnson & Johnson. Promotional support provided by NJBIA and by bestofnj.com. To watch more Remember Them with Steve Adubato and Jacqui Tricarico, find us online and follow us on social media.
You are your child's best advocate. No one cares more about your child's health, safety, development, and well-being more than you. Empower yourself with the vaccination information you need to make the best decisions for your child. Hackensack Meridian Health can help. Learn more about fact-based information at hackensackmeridianhealth.org/vaccine-facts, and always talk to your child's pediatrician.
For New Jersey kids, for New Jersey seniors, for New Jersey families, unite to end hunger. For the Community Food Bank of New Jersey, the state's largest anti-hunger, anti-poverty organization that gives hundreds of food pantries, soup kitchens, and nutrition programs across the state the food and resources they need. Unite to end hunger.
Public service. It's what we do. At the PSEG Foundation, through volunteer hours, partnerships, and our other contributions, we're committed to empowering communities. We work hand in hand with you, our neighbors, to educate young people, support research, environmental sustainability, and equitable opportunities, provide training and other services all over New Jersey and Long Island. Uplifting communities, that's what drives us, the PSEG Foundation.